Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a very fascinating, enlightening, and terrifying upload to share with you. Before we get into it, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is directly under this video in a display. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks can be found on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? So, like I said in the last couple of uploads, I am not only fascinated with encounters, but I'm fascinated with the facts of everything. And just like so many of you, know that the government is, if not behind everything, at least they are aware of everything. They may not be pulling the strings, but they certainly are providing attachments to those strings to lengthen them to the levels these things go on. Whether it be Dogman, Sasquatch, UFOs, Nephilim, magic, Satanism, what have you. They are involved. And today I'd like to share with you some information that I just finished reading up and was absolutely blown away, so I know you guys will be as well. This upload is going to be in two parts also. This is pretty much proof that the government is aware of these things on all scales. So today's upload will be followed up with a part 2 tomorrow. And it is absolutely mind-blowing. I want to start this video off first with the proof of why Nephilim exist and how they are in our government. Nephilim are recorded in the Bible as giants, half angel, half human. They are also referred to as watchers. Today, most people identify them as aliens or lizard people. There have been numerous impossibly sized skulls, skeletons, and mummies found all over the world, including the Americas. There have been hidden by the mainstream museums as they don't conform with their world view, or the Nephilim in power are trying to conceal their existence. The concealing of artifacts is not uncommon in the mainstream media. For example, there was a warehouse scene in Indiana Jones where the Ark of the Covenant was stored. And there was a television show called Warehouse 13 that ran for 5 seasons on that topic. People often call what they don't understand aliens or UFOs. It's very believable that someone in an encounter with a Nephilim would be inclined to describe one as an alien. The government has known about aliens since 1909 and has been hiding it since. In 1995, $500 billion was allocated from the American government yearly for projects involving aliens. This budget will no doubt have grown significantly since then, and this budget disregards Congress or any semblance of the government we think is real. Phil Schneider had a face-to-face experience in where they burned half of his left hand with some sort of heat energy. He described them as 7 feet tall and vile smelling. Gathering what we know from the biblical demons, they have the power to possess and shape-shift. These powers, combined with human form, would give them the ability to change their appearance subtly. Lucifer transformed into a serpent in the Garden of Eden, so a reptilian form would be logical. However, using preconceived notions from our pop culture to change into what we think aliens look like to discredit the people who discover them is highly likely. It is obvious that at least the American government has been infiltrated by the Nephilim, shown by numerous whistleblowers such as Schneider. The Nephilim are in our world and in our government. They have the ability to change their appearance, and many people confuse them with aliens or lizard people. In the Bible, they are described as giants, and hundreds of impossibly tall skeleton skulls and remains have been found. These remains are being hidden by the museums and governments for numerous reasons. One reason is that the Nephilim are trying to hide their presence on Earth. Another reason is that it interferes with Darwinian logic. American government has known about the supernatural beings since 1909. A former black ops brought a huge amount of evidence to light when he quit. This man is Paul Schneider, and he had a face-to-face encounter with the Nephilim where half of his hand was burned off in an attack. In some of the information he brought to light in 1995, one of the most startling facts was that $500 billion yearly has being put into projects related to the Nephilim without the knowledge of the public. These all prove that the Nephilim have a pretty good grip on the American government, and possibly many others as well. Now, for hundreds of years, people worldwide have reported encounters with monsters, fairies, demons, and cryptids. To this day, those experiences persist, while many of these same entities have also been encountered through the use of psychedelics. Now, it would be easy to say these are simply archetypal figures, beings of our collective conscious, conjured in our mind with anthropomorphic features based on fears or subliminal functions of our psyche. Or we could entertain the ostensibly bizarre possibility these are entities from another dimension, operating on higher realms of existence. These entities are referred to as ultra-terrestrials, beings capable of crossing dimensions at will, often acting as cosmic pranksters. Indeed, Daniel Pinchbeck says he experienced prankster entities cross from a psychedelic realm into the real world after encountering them during and in a subsequent week following a trip. When it comes to Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Yeti, or whatever you want to call them, there's often a playfulness and or spookiness described in their actions. Tree knocking, eerie screams alert us to their presence until we get close enough where they may offer a glimpse before vanishing seemingly into thin air. Their appearance could be considered another form of a prank, embodying a primitive ape-like creature that exudes a noxious odor. Yet, they are able to evade contact with us despite thousands of reported sightings over hundreds of years. Is Sasquatch cosmically trolling us? An intriguing account tying UFOs and Bigfoot together comes from a 1888 meeting between cattle ranchers and a group of Native Americans in Northern California. The Native Americans described 3 crazy bears that descended from the sky in a small moon, leaving them in the woods before taking off. In another instance, in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1973, a woman named Refa Hetfield and her daughter were awakened in the middle of the night to a beam of light extending down from the bulbous umbrella shape in the sky. Tracking the light to where it landed in the nearby woods, the two noticed a grayish, simian creature wandering toward the beam. Before they knew it, both the ape and the craft disappeared. These stories may be apocryphal in nature. It's reported that at least 20% of Bigfoot sightings coincide with UFO events. Jack Carey, a cryptozoologist who has studied Bigfoot for decades, says he believes it's alternatively plausible that a Sasquatch is being abducted by UFOs in much the same way humans are, to study its DNA and physical attributes. Carey also ascribes to the idea that something called the Mach effect could explain the possibility of interdimensional travel. The Mach effect, which is actually a sound principle in physics being tested by NASA, employs the use of fluctuations created by the body of mass as it accelerates that are in turn used to generate thrust. Kari says he believes the Earth's fluctuations can create momentary tears in the electromagnetic membrane separating our universe with a parallel one, allowing extra-dimensional entities access into our dimension. The illustrious Jacques Vallée is in the mindset that there is something extra-dimensional going on, sharing a similar sentiment, speaking about the UFO phenomenon. Vallée believes there is something more to the traditional explanation of extraterrestrial race visiting the Earth, instead believing in a possible window to another dimension. We are dealing with a yet unrecognized level of consciousness, independent of man but closely linked to the Earth. I do not believe anymore that UFOs are simply the spacecraft of some race of extraterrestrial visitors. This notion is too simplistic to explain their appearance and frequency of their manifestations through recorded history, and the structure of the information exchanged with them during contact. In the 1960s, the CIA investigated an alleged simultaneous encounter with Sasquatch and a UFO at Presque Isle State Park in the all too appropriately named city Erie, Pennsylvania. The ensuing reports were documented as part of the infamous Project Blue Book, during which the government investigated thousands of cases involving UFOs. Presque Isle is a peninsula arching out over Lake Erie to form Presque Isle Bay, one of the state's most visited summer tourist destinations. On the night of July 31st, 1966, 4 tourists from New York found their car stuck in the sand after spending the day relaxing on the beach 6 of the peninsula. One member of the group, Gerald LaBelle, was sent to call a tow truck while the others remained in the car. Around 10 p.m., police on patrol stopped to ask if they were all right. After being informed that help was on the way, the officers said they would check back within the hour. When the people returned about 35 minutes later, the group said it witnessed something weird going on up there, pointing to a location in the sky above the wooded area. One of the group's members, Douglas Tibbs, went to investigate along with 2 other officers. The 2 women in the group, Betty Clem and Anita Heffley, remained in the car while they waited for everyone's return. Tibbets and the officers walked roughly 300 yards up the beach before hearing the honking of the car's horn, hurrying back to see what happened. Clem and Heffley, clearly shaken, said they witnessed a dull, black shape bigger than a man, big head and shoulders, arm-like appendages, no hands, no face visible, as though it had its back turned in the front of their car before it lumbered into the brush. When Clem blew the horn, a scratching sound on the hood or roof of the car was reported. In the end, this creature was dismissed by investigators as a raccoon, despite the lady's very distinct description of a bipedal humanoid figure. But what about the UFO? Alright guys, so I don't know if a lot of you remember, but I had a subscriber from Louisiana, I believe it was Louisiana, just off the top of my head, that had an encounter with a Dogman, 2 actually. One when he was a kid with his cousin, and it was in the trees. He first saw one in the trees. The second time he had one, he was going through a really bad time, and he had taken a dose of acid and was relaxing in his backyard, and this Dogman came out of the woods with like a necklace on, and it was a very spiritual thing for him, and he is 100% certain that this creature was real. Did it come out of the woods? Quite possibly. Did it come out of his subconsciousness? Quite possibly too. Who knows? I wasn't there, and nor were you, but this is what he shared with us. Now we are going to go deep into something that I read that blew my mind. This talks about the cover-ups of the government, big pharma, big bank, oil, other countries' governments. It goes deep, guys. So, a couple of minutes ago, I talked about $500 billion being allocated. Well, where does that money come from? And what is it really used for? Well, this is what it's used for. And this is where it comes from. This next piece of the upload is a whistleblower that worked for MI6. Government harassment and surveillance of me has increased since going public. I believe this has now become a national security issue. I've had my life threatened. Men situated in the hotel opposite my flat taking photographs of me using high-tech long-range camera which used blue laser, my phone line, and my girlfriend's mother's phone line tapped. My information hacked into and taken off multiple websites and emails from government officials blocked. I believe this is because I am leaking information on projects classified above top secret, which I will go into detail. The intelligence run drug trafficking is the only classified secret. My name is James Cobalt, and I worked in MI6 covert cocaine traveling operations with the IRA in London between 1995 and 1999. My father, Peter Cobalt, was also in M16 and worked with the CIA and Mafia in Rome in 1993 on covert cocaine and heroin trafficking operations. The global drug trade, run by many factions of the global intelligence community cooperating together, MI6, CIA, MOSSAD, etc., is worth at least $500 billion a year. This is more than the global oil trade. MI6 control many of the other intelligence agencies in the world. MI6 created the CIA in 1947 and still control them today. This black op drug money, or in classic Orwellian terms, MI6/CIA, non-appropriated funds, is being used to fund government and military projects classified above top secret. These operations include huge worldwide UFO cover-up and the building and maintaining of deep underground military bases, or DUMBs. There are many of these bases worldwide, but here's a small list. Duluth in New Mexico, Brecon Beacons in Wales, Los Alamos in Mexico, Pine Gap in Australia, the Snowy Mountains in Australia, the Nila Range in Africa, west of Kindu in Africa, next to the Libyan border in Egypt, Mount Blanc in Switzerland, Norvik in Scandinavia, and Gotland Island in Sweden, and many other places. These projects are being run by a secret, unelected international governing body connected to the UN. There are at least 1,400 of these DUMBs worldwide, 131 in the United States, with 2 underground bases being built per year in the United States at this moment. The average depth of these bases are 4.25 miles underground, some shallower and some deeper. The bases are on average the size of a medium city. Each dumb base costs between $17 to $26 billion to build, which is funded by MI6 CIA drug money. Each underground base employs 1,800 to 10,000 workers. A nuclear-powered drill is being used to dig underground. This drill goes through rock at a tremendous rate and literally melts the rock away to form a smooth glass-like surface around the edge of the tunnels. On May 20th, I personally received information from a former member of the NSA. Through a third party, I wish to protect this man's identity, and so I will call him G. This is the first time this information is being made public. G was subcontracted by the NSA in the late 80s and worked there until 1992. He was a senior electrical engineer in the Los Alamos underground base in New Mexico. G also worked at the Alamogordo Dam in New Mexico and an underground base in Hawaii. He said the Los Alamos base goes 2 miles underground and is the size of a small city. While there, he witnessed rows of caged humans, tall gray aliens, and reptilian alien. G says the NSA was very hard on all subcontractors, and people were worked very hard under severe conditions. According to G, the U.S. federal government and United States Air Force and the Department of Energy run the Hawaii Dam he worked at. This base goes down 2 miles and stretches out into the Pacific Ocean. It was here that 3 very tall and muscular Nordic-looking men, according to G, were reptilian human hybrids because their eyes would shift into having vertical slits for pupils, chased him along the motorway there and threatened to kill him because he had overheard them talking about some piece of high technology. Understandably, G has been emotionally scarred from these experiences and does not like talking about them with people. I was also told on May 23rd from this source that in June there would be a huge amount of HAARP-engineered earthquakes on the west coast of America, and that the dams there had already been evacuated and shut down. This was 100% accurate because between the 21st and 28th of June, there were at least 400 earthquakes on the west coast of America. I posted this information on the Godlike Products forum on the net, and within hours the post was hacked into and removed. By an executive order, the NSA is exempt from all laws which do not specifically name the NSA in the text of law, which basically means they can do whatever they want and are answerable to no one. This is because of this interaction with extraterrestrial species and it is twisted view that the people are children and cannot handle the truth. There is currently an internal war waging in the global intelligence community regarding the alien agenda. This is between negative and positive factions. From my understanding, one of the main negative factions in this group centered around MI6 and the CIA called Aquarius. This group is up truth, blatantly lying, discrediting, or murdering anyone who gets too close to exposing what is going on. There is also a positive group centered around the naval intelligence called COM-12, which is leaking accurate information regarding the alien agenda into the public arena. When the missile, not plane, hit the Pentagon on 9/11, it hit the naval intelligence section of the building. This was part of an internal war between Aquarius and COM-12 being played out. Aquarius has also listed the help of Hollywood and the mainstream media to twist the facts of the alien agenda and blind the public to the truth. Sir Martin Wakefield Jokum, director for the Telegraph newspaper in 1986, he is also connected to MI6 and is involved with laundering MI6 drug money through a bank in England. Jokum was the director of the bank in England in 87 to 95. Former head of the CIA, William Casey, was head of the council of the media network ABC. Many insiders refer to the ABC network as the CIA network. The gray and reptilian aliens working together with the military in an underground base is called MIEC, Military Industrial Extraterrestrial Complex. This is a malevolent organization, as shall see with the following information. There are also benevolent ETs on this planet. These groups are not part of the Military Industrial Extraterrestrial Complex and are from the Pleiades, the Andromeda, Lyra, Procyon, Tau Ceti, Sirius A, Omo. These groups seem to work together in some kind of protective federation. On February 20th, 1954, a delegation of these groups met with Eisenhower administration in an unsuccessful effort to reach an agreement with the United States thermonuclear weapon program. The stumbling block to these negotiations was that these ETs were not willing to provide technology that may have been used by the military-industrial factions of the Eisenhower administration. These peace-loving, human-looking beings refused to be co-opted into emerging military-industrial extraterrestrial complex in the United States, Britain, Russia, and elsewhere on the planet. On July 11th, 1934, the first treaty with the Greys from Orion occurred aboard a naval ship in Balboa. This was one of the most important events in human history because it thrust us into a role we were not prepared for as regards to being a host to a malevolent extraterrestrial race. The United States federal government disregarded the Constitution of the United States by doing this and not telling the people. It was here that the agreement was first made between the Greys, representing the reptilians of Orion, and representatives of the United States intelligence community. The treaty stated that in return for the Greys providing high technology, anti-gravity, metals and alloys, environment, free energy, medical technology, the government would allow the Greys to proceed unhindered with human abduction. This was only if a list of abductees was provided to the government and the abductees returned unharmed with their memories of the events erased. In 1944, the second extension of the treaty was signed. I have very little details of this. In May of 1954, again under the Eisenhower administration, the third extension of this treaty was signed, called the Greta Treaty. The Greys and reptilians blatantly broke the terms of this treaty, as we shall see later in this information. The Greta Treaty was agreed upon at the Holman Air Force Base in New Mexico by the Greys and the Ultra Unit in the NSA. The original document of this treaty and the ET materials can be found today at the NSA facility called Blue Moon, underneath Kirkland Air Force Base in New Mexico. The entrance to this underground base is in the Manzano Mountains. Also at this location is a technological base of the secretive Department of Energy. The energy devices developed from the Grey and Reptilian technology are being built for use in space at the DOE base. On April 15th, 1964, two intelligent personnel met under Project Plato with the Greys in New Mexico desert to arrange a meeting on April 25th at the Holman Air Force Base. This meeting was to renew the treaty again in a psychological bid to buy time in order to solve the problem of the Greys and Reptilians. A truly nightmarish situation is now unfolding. Phil Schneider was a geologist, structural engineer, and underground tunneling expert for the United States government and the United Nations. He participated in the construction of many dams in North America and other countries. Phil was murdered by the CIA on January 17, 1996, in his apartment in Wilsonville, Portland, Oregon. In '79, in Duluth, Phil Schneider was drilling into the desert there to build an auxiliary base in the southern end of Duluth on top of an already existing underground base there. The already existing base had been built by the United States government in the 40s under Operation Blue Note, but afterward had been taken over by the Greys and reptilians. Over a period of 2 days, Phil and his team had drilled 4 holes in the desert and went down several thousand feet. One of the holes kept bringing up dirty dust, putrid odors, and broken off machine bits that were sent down the hole. Boring machines and lasers came back up, damaged when they were sent down. A probe was then sent down and came back totally missing. Eventually, people were sent down. Phil was the first person to go. He was lowered down into the cave, and when he got down there, standing around 10 feet away were 2 7-foot Greys. He became petrified, but managed to empty 1 magazine from his pistol into the Greys. As he was reloading, one of the Greys hit Phil with some kind of particle weapon beam and gave him a very high dose of nuclear radiation poisoning, similar to cobalt radiation, but even worse. Phil's lung was burnt out of him, and he has a huge scar running down his chest, which he had showed at lectures, which are available on video, google.com. Crazy enough, I'll let you know when I get back to the article, but I was just watching a video talking about in 1950s, they were talking about the Cobalt Bomb, which is like the godfather of dirty bombs. It technically, one Hiroshima bomb with like 7 or 8 ounces of cobalt 59 would actually destroy the world, humanity, and animals as we know it, because when it hits, the radiation molecules and this and that or whatever turn it into cobalt 60. Just absolutely crazy what the government is doing, and we want to believe them and say yet they do not have, they don't know the existence of cryptids or aliens or anything. This is BS. Phil Schneider was a geologist, structural engineer, underground tunneling expert who participated in the construction. In May of 95, he suffered from terminal cancer and began giving talks in Las Vegas describing in detail the underground cities, the government's secret deal with negative aliens, high alien technology being employed by the government, including carbomite element 140, mining on the moon, FEMA in the martial law, and the coming of New World Order takeover, the alien NWO genocide agenda to reduce the Earth's population by 85% before 2029, and the host of other stunning revelations. Holy crap. COVID. Phil Schneider was an extraordinarily brave man who knew that he was going to be killed because of this information he revealed. His fingers on his left hand were burned off. His bones were burnt. He was basically cooked. He was in radiation isolation therapy for 400 days plus. In a cave, large metallic vats were found with human body parts, generally glands. In the vats were high-tech stirring devices that stopped the blood coagulating. In Aztec in New Mexico, on the 13th of February, 1948, a crashed flying disc was retrieved by the United States military. The crash was 100 feet in diameter and was made of a light metal resembling aluminum and contained ET bodies. A large number of human body parts were also found on board that craft. The above top-secret security lid was screwed down on this event tighter than Roswell to stop mass panic. The next day after the craft was probably shot down by the military. The government brought up the property from the local landowners. Witness in Aztec observed military trucks going in and out of the area for days after the crash. The craft was then transported to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The disc incorporated large rings of metal which revolved around a central stabilized cabin. There were no rivets, bolts, screws, or signs of welding. and Aztec carefully guarded their words as the accounts of the crashed disk. Aztec citizens are still being monitored by the military to this day. One elderly woman said her husband watched military trucks going in and out of the crash area for days. She said she was very nervous about the whole thing and did not want to talk about it to anyone other than her husband. She was asked if she believed there had been a UFO crash. Her response was, if something hadn't happened out there, how come the military rushed in? Why was the covered military trucks going in and out of the canyon? Why did they deny being there? And why were they buying the near and surrounding land where the UFO supposedly crashed? In Cambodia in 1972, at the height of the Vietnam War, a United States Special Operations team went out to patrol, came across a group of alien creatures loading various human body parts into large metal containers and sealing them. A pitched battle ensued, which resulted in fatalities on both sides. As the soldiers pulled back, the aliens quickly retreated to their craft, taking the body parts with them. As usual, a major cover-up was quickly enforced. One of the contacts in Wales, who I will call D to protect his identity, was approached by an elite intelligence organization called Group 58. This group was formed by Margaret Thatcher in the 80s to work at the sites of the crashed ET craft in Britain. This is the first time this information has been made public. Even though Group 58 was formed by Margaret Thatcher, it is a UN group. Group 58, man called George, showed my contact a UN identity card with UN holograms on it. George then drove D to a clandestine meeting on the motorway service. It was here that George showed D photographs of human mutilations. They had been found near heavily guarded Brecon Beacon Dam in Wales. These photos were taken at a sealed-off area where the UFO activity had taken place. The photos showed a girl of 16 and a boy of 20 who had their genitals removed, eyeballs removed, lips removed, and directly half of their skin was missing. George said Group 58 regularly found camper vans around this area where the occupants had vanished. D understandably had nightmares for weeks after this, and was soon afterward followed by a high-tech American utility van with blue lights underneath it. I believe this was an NSA van. After this, D had his life threatened over the phone. The call was anonymous, but told him to keep quiet or his house would be burnt with him in it. George then called D and told him his life was in danger and to get the information out as soon as possible to protect himself. The next day, a gasman turned up, pulled out his ID the moment the door was open, walked in and checked the meter. When he left, a fire broke out, which nearly burnt down the house with D and his wife inside. The house was wrecked, and the fire brigade said the fire had mysteriously started in a bin in the room where the gas man was. After this, D, another man, and myself were investigating reports of dumb and missing children around a small village of Zanor in Cornwall. There have been many sightings of alien beings on the cliffs there since the 60s, and many UFO sightings around the area, and large amounts of covert military activity. Some of the UFOs had disappeared into the ocean, according to witnesses. 2 years ago, at a Devon and Cornwall police project, classified secret had gone on. This was a dig for the mass graves of children by the police. They had traced the reports of many missing children in the area. This is classified information that D managed to get a hold of from his contacts. Once again, this is the first time this information is being made public. From that, I can gather the police did not find any bodies, and the digging area was walled off from the public. I believe the police were looking in the wrong place because the activity seems to be coming from underground. When the poet D.H. Lawrence stayed at a small cottage in Zanor, he heard explosions coming from deep underground. Aleister Crowley, who was an MI6 agent, spent much time in Zanor. As already stated, MI6 and the CIA are heavily involved in the alien agenda. I believe Aleister Crowley was up to his neck in it. Aleister Crowley had performed many satanic rituals at the cottage in Xanor. There seems to be a close connection with Satanism and the Greys and Reptilians. At this cottage one night after Crowley left, that a woman named Kay Cox died of a stroke, and her husband went insane and ended up in the Bodmin mental asylum. The man said a reptilian being had materialized in the home, and I believe Kay Cox died of fright after seeing this. The police files pertaining her death were stolen from the police station after this. Aleister Crowley was also at the Montauk in New York when the project was in full swing, and there was a quantum energy grid line that ran from Montauk to Xanor and the Men-en-Toll ancient stones in Cornwall. After the fire at Dee's house, everything had gone quiet for a couple of years. All of a sudden, after 2 days into our missing children investigation at Xanor, Dee had men outside of his bedroom window shining lights in. This is an intimidation tactic used by intelligence agencies. I have only scratched the surface of what is going on in Xanor, as there is not room to go into it here. The bigger picture will be made public soon. So what is going on with these human mutilations and missing people? The truth of the matter is the Greys and Reptilians feed off the glandular secretions and hormones through a type of osmosis. This is why major organs are taken from people. Your mind may want to go into denial that this is happening, but if you start digging, you will find this 100% true. On the Crowded Skies website, there is a video smuggled out of the loose underground facility that shows Greys inside vats absorbing these blood mixtures through their skin. Researcher Bill Hamilton and Tal Redacted, aka Jason Bishop, received reports from workers at the Duluth Dome who worked there in the mid-70s when it was being jointly run by the CIA, Greys and Reptilians. This was before the ETs completely took over the base and kicked humans out. The workers said the Duluth facility goes down at least 7 levels. Level 6 is privately called Nightmare Hall amongst workers. They tell of bizarre experimentation in multi-legged humans that look half human, half octopus, reptilian humanoids, furry creatures with hands like humans that cry like a baby and mimic human words. Right there. Do I need to repeat it? Workers said the Duluth facility goes down at least 7 levels. Level 6 is privately called Nightmare Hall amongst the workers. They tell of bizarre experimentation, multi-legged humans that look half human, half octopus, reptilian humanoids, furry creatures with hands like humans that cry like a baby and mimic human words. Also, huge mixture of lizard humans in cages, several cages with winged humans, 3.5 to 7 feet tall bat-like creatures and gargoyle-like beings. On level 7 are thousands of rows of humans and human genetic mixtures in cold storage, humanoid embryo storage vats with embryos in various stages of development. Another worker said they witnessed scenes even more terrifying than this and refused to talk about them. One worker told Bill Hamilton, frequently encountered humans in cages, usually dazed or drugged, but sometimes they cried and begged for help. We were told they were insane and involved a high-risk drug test to cure insanity. We were told never to speak to them at all. At the beginning, we believed the story. Finally, in 1978, a small group of workers discovered the truth. Tom Castillo is one of the security workers at the Duluth facility. Thomas worked 7 years for the Rand Corporation in California. He was transferred to Duluth in 1977. He estimated there were more than 18,000 short grays at Duluth, and also saw tall reptilians. Thomas knew of 7 levels, but said there could have been more. He said the aliens were on levels 5, 6, and 7. Lower you go, the higher the security clearance is needed. The only sign in English is above the tube shuttle system that says, "To Los Alamos." The tube shuttle travels at Mach 2.7. Most signs at the Duluth facility are in the alien symbol language and the universal system understood by humans and ETs. Thomas said the other shuttle connection from Duluth went to Page, Arizona, Area 51, Nevada, Teos, Carlsbad, Detil, New Mexico, Colorado Springs, Creede, Colorado. Thomas also said there was a vast number of tube shuttle connections under the United States which extend into a global system of tunnels to further underground bases in other countries. Thomas Castillo said that below the second level of the Duluth facility, everyone is weighed naked and given a uniform. Any change in weight is noted, and if there is a change in weight of 3 pounds or more, the people are x-rayed. At the entrance to all sensitive areas are scales, and that person's weight must match their ID card and code to gain entry. Thomas Castillo smuggled many things out of Duluth facility before he escaped, which included 27 sheets of 8x10 photos of alien and genetic creatures in the vats, one silent surveillance system camera, which begins with showing computer banks and vats, multi-shots of Nightmare Hall, 2 shots of Gray, 1 shot of a terminal sign saying "To Los Alamos," and 30 seconds of the shuttle train arriving, 25 pages of diagrams, chemical formations, schematics, and alien equipment, a copy of the new government alien treaty with signatures. Pages of original documents signed by Ronald Reagan, the then governor of California. Each page has Ronald Reagan's signatures plus other political signatures and 4 alien signatures. Thomas Castillo's flash gun, a laser-type weapon used by security officers at Duluth. Thomas put the original set of items in a sealed, one-piece oxygen-free heavy plastic box, 5 sets of copies in 5 different boxes in 5 different locations, guarded by 5 different individuals known only to Thomas Castillo. I understand these individuals would be scared to leak this proof, as Thomas Castillo's wife and children were kidnapped and then disappeared in Puerto Rico not long after this, now presumed dead. But if any of you are reading this, then please contact me anonymously and we will arrange for you to get a copy. I will be able to get it out on large scale. My email address will be at the end of this article. This is part of the interview with Thomas Castillo before he disappeared. I am saying there are aliens in several underground bases in this country, and terrible things happen in those places. If I die before it is proven, search for proof, demand the government admit it. If enough people demand it, they will find a way to explain the base, or at least explain why they must keep it secret. There are many people that work at Duluth that know me. I am challenging those co-workers to speak up anonymously, send a letter to confirm what I have explained. In the name of brave men, women, and children, and aliens that died trying to let the public know what is going on at the Duluth facility, expose the horrid place before thousands of more innocent people are tortured and die unspeakable deaths. The Rand Corporation, which is involved in the construction of these underground bases, has released a Roper report. This is now the 3rd generation report that says, according to their research, 1 out of 10 people have been abducted and implanted by Grey and reptilians and returned with their memories erased. This report has been sent out, and 110,000 clinical psychiatrists in the United States. The Roper report also states that women are being accosted by reptilian ETs as part of an ongoing genetic program. As fantastic as it sounds, it is backed up by some of the world's top doctors like John Mack and many others. There are some 90 concentrated psychiatric scientists in the United States who are trying to form an organization to prevent secrecy on this horrendous situation. They say that because of the alien government treaties, this amounts to government-sponsored women accosted. According to the Roper report, 99.3% of the abductees are being used as ongoing genetic ET program are female and 0.7 are male. I have personally seen intelligent documents of studies into the gray and reptilian problem that show they are involved in genetic sabotage of the human race. The gray and reptilian alien agenda is to slowly and covertly taking over the planet in the next 30 years, reduce the population, and run the planet from underground using the surface population as food to be taken when and how they wish. The British, Russian, and United States government is shooting down around one gray and reptile craft a month with particle beam weapons developed from Tesla technology. The Russians have areas the size of football fields full of crashed ETs. If that is not a full-scale invasion, I do not know what is. The British, Russian, and United States government have become blood brothers and the best friends because of the alien agenda. The Russian and U.S. Cold War was a sham, so these governments could develop nuclear weapon programs to counter the alien threat. The Cold War was a lie for the public to take attention away from the nuclear weapon program was really being developed for, not the Russians, but as a last resort against the Greys and Reptilians. The headquarters of the secret international governing body in charge of dealing with the ET phenomenon is in Geneva, Switzerland. The ruling body is made up of representatives of the governments involved, as well as the executive members of a group known as the Bilderbergers. As I have said, the British, American, Russian governments are working very closely together because of the gray reptilian threat on the planet. Although the situation is so horrendous that these governments have shattered into panicked factions, some of which have been sold out and are directly helping the gray and reptilians. According to a very credible United States government insider, William Cooper, Behold the Pale Horse is a book everyone needs to get, guys. William Cooper wrote it. He is killed by the United States government. The most important meetings of the secret international governing body are held by the Policy Committee on Nuclear Submarine beneath the polar ice caps. The secrecy is such that this is not only method to make certain the meetings cannot be bugged, and it is the only place they will discuss the biggest secrets. It would be wrong and cruel of me to present this information without presenting a full picture. The Greys and Reptilians from Orion have been involved in an ancient war with benevolent Pleiadians and other groups. The Pleiadians are a very powerful group and are the guardians of our solar system. I personally do not believe they will let the gray reptilian agenda fully unfold. They have helped us in the past, are helping us now, and will help us in the future. I know this because I have many paranormal ET contact experiences since a child. There is not room to go into detail, but this covered in the above top secret presentation with investigative journalist Dave Starbuck. Type Revelation Audio Visual Dave Starbuck into a search engine to find it. I have a very clear photographic evidence of benevolent Pleiadian ET materializing in my home and a box of channeled communications with these creatures. These photographs will stand up to a computer grain analysis test because they are all 100% real. I also do not have the knowledge or technology to fake them. One photo shows a very clear face materializing in front of me. I also have post-traumatic stress disorder from abductions and other contacts with malevolent reptilian entities. Again, these are covered in above top secret. There is a massive number of missing children in Britain, America, and other places connected to these underground bases. The figure in Britain seems to be at least 20,000 children disappear without a trace yearly. In 1995, classified CIA and DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, and FBI report, it stated that 100,000 children and 1 million adults disappear and are never found in the United States every year. You may ask yourself, how is this being covered up? As was mentioned in the beginning of the article, the same group working with the Greys and Reptilians, which is MI6, CIA, MIEC, own and control mainstream media. Like I've said before, 80% of it is owned by big bank, big pharma, big oil, military. I mean, right there, the MIEC. In 2001, Scotland Yard Police revealed that it had been unable to find 300 black children aged 4 to 7 that disappeared from London in a 3-month period. The 300 boys were reported missing in July to September of 2001. Journalist Yinka Sunmana, an expert in missing children, told BBC Today program, "Children are here one day and gone the next." In 1989 in Westchester, New York, which was the site of numerous UFO overflights and reports of human abductions at the time, over 3,000 missing children reports surfaced. After extensive investigation by local police departments, the children were not found at red light districts or centers for runaways. Researchers and law enforcement officials were baffled. There is also a CIA finder's case. This involved negative factions of the CIA directly involved in kidnapped children. It was revealed in 1987 U.S. Customs report. Customs and police raided a Washington, D.C. warehouse, which was used by the CIA. There they found numerous sets of instructions broadcast via computer network, which advised the CIA to move the huge amount of kidnapped children that were originally being held at that warehouse. Customs and police found large amounts of nappies and other things, and to keep them moving across jurisdictions. There were instructions on impregnation of female teenagers and also instructions on how to avoid police detection. The destination for the children in the instructions was New Mexico. The Albuquerque Journal ran an article entitled "Why New Mexico Has So Many More Missing Children Than Comparable States Remains a Mystery." Much of this activity is centered around New Mexico, where the Duluth underground facility is. One male survivor of the MI6 CIA mind control project, Monarch, described in The Illuminati Formula by France Springmeyer, the China Lake Naval Base at Woodcrest in California desert. This anonymous man says batches of kids numbering 1, 2, and 3,000 were kept in cages piled up to the ceiling in large hangars. He says these cages are called woodpecker grids. They are electrified and the children are tortured with electric shock. Children are today still being transported to China Lake Naval Base by train, car, or air. One of the main delivery routes for children into China Lake is by plane from the Santa Rosa airstrip near Bohemian Grove. Bohemian Grove, guys. I mean, come on. It says it all. The Santa Rosa airstrip is supposed to be closed, yet planes take off from there nightly, and they don't put their lights on until they are hundreds of feet in the air. The Nazi geneticist and mind control scientist Joseph Mengele, the angel of death from Auschwitz concentration camp, was brought to America after the war by MI6 and OSS, which became the CIA. In Project Paperclip, many other leading Nazi mind control experts, rocket scientists, geneticists were also brought to America and Britain after the war. Joseph Mengele stayed at the China Lake base and the Tavistock Institute in London. China Lake Naval Base is in the same as Lancaster, California. It was in Lancaster the mass graves of mutilated children were discovered. The sheer amounts of evidence, the only conclusion I can come up to is that certain sections of the United States and British government have sold us and our children to the malevolent ETs in our backdoor treaties. The situation is truly grim. Come on, people, it's time to wake up. The New World Order and UN, one world government, is this rigid control structure to clamp the people of the world into a totalitarian vice. so they won't have to tell us about the aliens. I also believe that certain sections of the intelligence community and the United States and British government are directly helping the Greys and reptilians with their takeover agenda. Evidence seems to point to ETs promising these humans certain powers when it happens. The name of the powerful secretive group is the Trilateral Commission, is taken from the Orion, Grey and Reptilian flag known as the Trilateral Insignia. This shows how much trouble the human race is really in. There is now an apathy amongst the people towards world events that is deadly and contagious. This is especially true of the people of Britain. We have truly become a nation of sheep. All I'm asking, guys, is to think about that. Just think about everything that you just heard. Think about how they lie to us about everything, whether it be aliens, cryptids, everything. And for what? Some things are starting to make sense. After I read that article, I was blown away. And a lot of it made sense. And after talking to certain people, that article made even more sense. Or actually, let me rephrase that. After reading that article and thinking back on talks I had with certain people, the article made more sense. There we go. It is absolutely insane. We are sheep. No more. We cannot be anymore. We have to stand up. The only thing we can do is educate ourselves and be prepared for the unknown. The smartest man is the most dangerous man, right? So, with that, I want to bid you all farewell. Please, everyone, be kind to each other. And oh yeah, may the Great Spirit watch over us all and guide us on our path through life.